So the last time I talked about books was the end of August, beginning of September, after my challenge, and I wanted to make another video kind of talking about what I've read. To be honest, it's like 95% comics, but I'm officially on break between semesters, and so I'm going to be trying to read as much as I can over the next 3 weeks or so, and I just wanted to make a quick update about my current reading status. Since I made my last reading challenge video, I've read all the Hawkeye comics, the recent Man Fraction, and then the 2 collections after that, so 6 Hawkeye collections. Astounding. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. I just need to make a whole separate comic book video, and then we'll all be okay. I finished Wolf and White Band, which I talked about in my video. Again, very strange, very different, a little difficult to get into, but so beautiful and interesting. John Darnielle, who's the author of the book, he's the lead singer, songwriter, basically all of the Mountain Goats. His songs in book are very similar, how haunting they are, and how just the way that he uses words in such a fresh and really unexpected way. It's awesome. I read David Sedaris' book, always amazing. Reread Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, started reading the Harry Potter books with Abram. I read a Captain Marvel collection. I read a Doctor Strange collection after it and saw the movie. And then there's just more Hawkeye. So far this year, I've read 26 titles. Literally 13 of them have been comic books. It's fine. No shame here. Currently, I'm reading 2 books. The first I started about a week or 2 before the election. I thought it was very appropriate. Still is. It's called Big Girls Don't Cry by Rebecca Traister. And it's a book about the women of the 2008 presidential election. There is so much in this book. It's kind of hard for me to talk about because I've been reading it for so long, and there's so much jam-packed in it. The past few chapters that I've been reading this week are talking a lot about feminism, intersectionality, the conflicts between second and third wave feminism, and how that literally played out in the choice between Hillary and Obama. I mean, it's profound stuff, and obviously a totally different situation than we had this year, but still so many things that apply. And it's not just about Hillary, it's about, Michelle Obama, Sarah Palin, other wives of candidates, their mothers, young and old, feminist writers, news anchors, everything. Oh, it's highly recommend. Again, taking a while, it's a slow read, but so interesting and so important, I think. And since that book has been taking me a while to read, last night I decided to start a novel to switch back and forth between these 2 things. So I'm reading The Circle by Dave Eggers. This is a pretty big book. They're making it into a movie next year, starring Emma Watson and Tom Hanks, so I am so there. I've had this on my shelf for a few months, maybe since the beginning of summer. The covers has a nice reflection. Basically, I've had this book for a while, and I decided to just kind of jump in and start reading it. So I'm only 13 pages in. Not much. Can't say too much about it. I think I calculated it's 2.14% of the entire book. The only thing I've thought about so far while reading this book is the descriptor of olive skin. When I was little and I would read books that described a character as having olive skin, I thought that was, maybe somebody who's Italian, someone that's a Mexican, maybe me when I was much darker as a child. Than I currently am. The biggest one that sticks out in my brain is Marco from Animorphs. Holla at my Animorphs fans. But he was definitely Hispanic, and they talked about it. They definitely made it clear the skin colors of all the characters in Animorphs. I feel like I have to go back and do a sociological analysis of Animorphs. Yes. But anyway, I was just thinking about that because, of course, Emma Watson is playing the main character, this girl who is described as having olive skin and dark hair. And again, I haven't read very far into it. I don't know much about this character, but it just got me thinking, which is what I do. Think too much about gender politics in fiction. Again, no shame here. To wrap this video up, I wanted to talk briefly about some new books I got today. I misplaced my debit card last week, and I haven't bought anything in like 10 days. When I found it today, I wanted to celebrate, naturally, by going out and spending money mainly on books. So I went to Barnes & Noble and I got 4 books today. The first being Milk and Honey. It's a poetry collection by Rupi Kaur. I've never actually heard of her before, but looking her up, she's like a young, famous Instagram poet, very active in promoting her poetry, showing it off on Instagram, Tumblr. My kind of girl. She's also Indian and Canadian, also my kind of girl. But it just seems like this beautiful, simple book. There's like poems, there's little like drawings about being young, being a woman, usual poetry stuff. It's also, like it says on here, it's a signed copy, so that's nifty, just for fun. I don't read a lot of poetry normally, but this is actually the second collection of poetry by a young woman of color that I bought in the past month or two, so it's nice to add to the collection. Next, I have this book called The Other Wes Moore by Wes Moore. I'm like 95% sure it's nonfiction. I'm not entirely sure, but it's basically about 2 boys, 2 young men who were named Wes Moore, grew up in similar situations, but one became highly educated and successful, famous to a certain degree, the one who wrote this book, and the other ended up in a lot of trouble, as it says here, a convicted murderer. I am so excited about this book. Being in sociology, a lot of people bring up agency as a way to kind of disprove sociology, to downplay these factors like race and class that affect real lives in our society. But even just on the back of the book, there's a quote that speaks to the truth of how we can have both agency and these larger structural factors at play. It says, "The chilling truth is that his story could have been mine. The tragedy is that my story could have been his." This just already gets me. Out of these books, this will probably be the first one that I read, so I'm so excited. I mean, it's obviously a tragedy, like I shouldn't be so giddy, but that's the kind of person I am. I'm sure it'll be very sobering as I read it. Next, I have One More Thing by B.J. Novak. This is a book I've wanted for a really long time. I finally picked it up because this is one of the first times I've seen it in paperback, and it was on a table where you buy 2, get 1 free. So, not a lot to say here. If he's anything at all like Mindy, I feel they have to be in some ways. Of course, it'll be different. But she is astounding, and I'm sure he'll be just as amazing. And my last book had to have some fiction in there. This is a book called The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. I've actually never read any Margaret Atwood before. I'm excited about this already. Just as a way to kind of jump into her. It sounds so interesting. It's about this young married couple who has so little in the ways of material possessions that they strike a deal, they sign a contract or something where every other month they get a free home and they get a job, but then on the alternating months they have to spend time in the prison system, which, I mean, I don't know about you, it sounds like an allegory of some sort. I mean, we'll just have to read it and see. I mean, what could they possibly be talking about or referring to? So that's where I am right now. I'll probably make a book in the new year talking about which books I get for Christmas, whether some kind souls gift me books, because that's all I ever ask for, or whether they're books I buy for myself. Let me know what you guys want to read over the break. Again, I have 3 to 4 weeks off before I start next semester, and one of those weeks will be taking a road trip, me and my family, back to California, so there will be plenty of time for me to read in the car. Hopefully, by the next time I make a video, I will have put together my room somewhat. I can finally have all my books in the background instead of a shelf out in our family room. It's a process, guys, okay? It's a process. So until then, thanks for watching. Can't decide if my hair makes me look like a 1960s Latina or a 1970s soft pop singer.